page 5, 6, 7,
Let's see, I believe it was
8.
Now, that's the kind of thing that I think is not proper in the council.
Let's be factual then, instead of truthful. Let's be factual.
Well, it's what applies by state law, Mr. Frank.
Yes, state law, that's a good word to use, state law. But we are required to...
One vote. Will there be any items pulled out for an individual consideration by members of the audience?
What about constituents? Have you talked to any constituents?
I haven't, yes, I've talked to a number of my constituents. Some of them are here today. Leaders and groups that lead us doesn't have any authority to approve any borrowings, any revenue bonds. No, this is not sour grapes. Had the city had the voting control of this trust, then I felt that the city would have a way of protecting its interest and not be involved with substantial costs. My concern here, without city control, and the reason I'm going to oppose this, first of all, I don't think I have had anybody in my ward that has indicated support of the World's Fair, although I have indicated to Mr. Strasbaugh that I would like to have been on the team and would support the World's Fair if we can have proper restrictions and protection for this as far as the city of Oklahoma City is concerned. That protection does not exist. So that pretty much says it. I do intend to circulate this petition. I also intend to put all of the documents involved in this matter and
In the words of a very famous poem that was set to music, or slight paraphrase, we shall be the determiners of our own destiny.
The destiny of Oklahoma was what the American Federation of Teachers had in mind when they called in leaders of labor, business, religion, the legislature, and others to talk about the state's budget crisis and what to do. What they spent much of the morning doing was criticizing the governor. George Nigh wasn't there, but his executive assistant was. Carl Clark was hit with criticism from the panel that the governor has done a bad job of planning and selling his proposals.
At the end of the session last year, it was apparent to anybody that read the budget that this wasn't a budget. This was literally a situation where we were going right to the wall and we were going to pray for that recovery.
To this day, the people of this state, including the legislature, have not been given a program as to what it is we're being asked to pay for. You'd never dream of running a campaign for re-election the way you've run this tax deal.
As the criticism continued, Clark defended Nigh, saying the governor does want input about state finances. But when asked what the governor was proposing in his new budget, Clark had little to say.
I think it is reasonable to assume that he feels that there are needs and that the revenues must be there to meet the needs.
Several panelists told Clark they don't feel the people of the state will support any revenue increase until they feel the state is willing to share its plans. Jeff Fowler, Action 4, downtown Oklahoma City.
I'm Ed Stewart. Sub-zero temperatures were responsible for at least a dozen water main breaks today. The water quickly froze to make driving hazardous in many areas of town. Work crews were hampered because some of their equipment was too cold to even get started. This has been the scene around the city for the last 24 hours. And since many of the water lines are old and worn, more breaks are expected. But officials say the worst is yet to come.
I don't think we're at the peak of our problem situation. As a matter of fact, when it starts warming up, that's when the mains probably will really start breaking. So we are just geared to deal with the situation. Well, anytime we have a sudden change, or anytime we have a change of temperature, then the mains tend to come apart on us. It's similar to you having a cold motor and pouring hot water on it. The material just won't take it. It cracks. So.
Besides water main breaks, the most common complaint associated with the weather is frozen pipes under houses. Insulating pipes help solve the problem, but the only lasting cure will be warmer temperatures. Ed Stewart, Action 4.
I see that we'll stay quite cold through Christmas Day, but we ought to start warming towards the Christmas weekend as it nears an end, and into the early part of next week ought to be milder than it has been and somewhat windy and more cloudy.
Gas prices in Oklahoma are at one of the lowest levels in 4 years. That's the word today from the American Automobile Association. AAA says holiday motorists can expect to pay about $1.10 for regular gasoline and $1.18 for unleaded. That's more than 6 cents cheaper than pump prices at this time last year. However, the holiday pump price is not the lowest motorists have paid this year. Gas bottomed out in March, just prior to the addition of the 5-cent federal gasoline tax. But gas prices have not gone up a full 5 cents since then. And while gas may be a little cheaper this year, availability is another question.
Oklahoma folks will pay about 6 cents a gallon less this year, while nationally we'll be down about 3.5 cents a gallon. We would advise all the folks that are traveling, though, to fill up before Christmas Day, as we expect about 2/3 of the gasoline stations to be closed on Christmas.
Also, a AAA survey points out that half of the country's full-service gas stations will be shut down early on Christmas Eve. The survey also states that 90% of service stations will maintain normal operating hours during the week between Christmas and New Year's Eve.
Now, what do we need to do with it?
For most of us involved in it, a real special Christmas for us. We feel good about doing it. You'll find, interestingly enough, that a lot of these people are alone. And this is what they do for their Christmas Day. They will spend Christmas Eve with their families or with whomever. But Christmas Day, they're down here, and it's become a part of their Christmas. And they feel better about Christmas because they did this.
Use patterns here in Oklahoma that we've been able to find anyway. There was some soil fumigation in peanuts primarily, a little bit in soybeans, and it used to be used in the stored grain industry for elevator fumigation. There have been other products come out that are much safer and easier to use, and it has been replaced. I'd say to the point where I doubt very seriously that even last year there was maybe 1 or 2 cans of it used.
Precious. Hi, Precious.
Oh, you're a kitty. You start crying so fast. Good nature. Dr. Psych told us.
Well, I guess not. She was just born, right? haven't had time.
Pound 6 ounces.
Wait, I'm sorry, make it 9.7.
9.7.
Because we balanced it with that.
Okay, pumpkin.
Big
9 pounds 7 ounces. You are in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Today is your birthday. And all the people came to see this birth. Everybody came for your first birthday party.
You guys get one for the kicker here.
Just immediately.
You have hiccups? You have the hiccups? 4 o'clock.
Yeah, you open your eyes. Oh.
There you are.
It's like the cameraman's eyes.
Well, you're starting to get a nice healthy glow. You're not purple anymore.
Yeah, this is Abbey.
You're turning pink. Oh, try and open those eyes. It's hard.
Driving winds and light snow kept Will Rogers World Airport partially hidden from the outside world this morning. Crews were out early trying to blow the snow off the airport's west runway. The blowers had to combat the ice as well. By mid-morning, snow plows were out scraping the airstrip in an attempt to get the closed runway ready for traffic.
Now at 324, Rogers comes. Yes, sir, senior advises your release.
After a night of clearing, the airport's east landing strip was in good condition, and traffic flowed smoothly in and out all day. Most pilots coming into Will Rogers found the braking fair to good, and no major problems were reported. Tower officials expect the activity to die down considerably after 8 this evening.
Hey, all flights out of San Antonio.
Inside, there were delays. Frozen airports in other cities bogged down boarding traffic here. Will Rogers officials are warning people to be prepared.
Would like to recommend to our travelers that will be coming through our airports in the next, say, 96 hours, to be patient and understanding with the airline personnel. They're doing the best they can to accommodate their travel needs, bearing in mind that the first concern is safety.
Overall, airport officials are pleased with their performance during the last 24 hours and believe they will be able to accommodate most travelers. Kevin Ogle, Action 4 at Will Rogers World Airport.
How a restaurant fares at night is a much different story than how it fares during the day. To go to your favorite restaurant at night requires that you brave even more cold. Of course, your trip may be worth it if it's something warm you're after. But many restaurants in town have noticed that business is dropping off somewhat. Anytime there's inclement weather, you can bet restaurants will feel it too.
Usually at this time of day, you wouldn't have had those open tables to film that you've already filmed. There would not be those tables open, but the people that have been here for quite a while, and they don't feel like getting back out into the weather. They stay here instead of fighting the traffic.
$9 and 11 for change. Thank you.
And what about movie theaters? On what terms will people brave the cold? To what lengths will they go to see their favorite movie? The day after Christmas, the movie Terms of Endearment sold out. The next day when the ice storm hit, attendance dropped off by 200 or so. The cold has a tendency to make people want to stay home. Theaters know this, they expect this, and so they're not surprised when business drops off.
They tend to stay in during the bad weather.
But no matter how bad the weather, there are always those brave souls who will bundle up, venture out, and look for entertainment, no matter how frozen the city. Bella Shaw, Action 4 in Northwest Oklahoma City.
John, when he comes in, you might try to get him through.
Nigh says the plan is aimed at balancing the state budget for the next 18 months. The plan is to cut $153 million out of the current budget in the next 5 months and $35 million from next year's budget, then raise $430 million in new revenues in the next year and a half. Legislative committees have been working on the cuts. Nigh has worked out the plan for new taxes, a 1.25-cent sales tax hike, raising $55 million the rest of this year and $270 million next year. Adding the sales tax to beer and cigarettes and raising the alcohol excise tax. That would raise $5 million now and $15 million next year. A 3.5-cent increase to the gasoline tax, raising $16 million this year and $70 million next.
The taxes for May and June.
That is a smaller tax package than the last one Nigh asked for and did not get.
This plan is acknowledging the response of the people in the legislature that they did not want to do everything exactly at the same level. This new plan says, okay, let's chin it, let's make a major reduction this current fiscal year and get through it, but let's still try to preserve as much as progress as possible, and let's still try to get our own federal bucks back on the highway program.
Under the Nigh plan, next year's budget would be a little higher than the current reduced levels. But Nigh says that follows 2 straight years of cuts, and services have been reduced as much as the state can afford. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4, at the state capitol.
Gasoline tax. That's another reason why I looked to these sources, because I thought it was an equitable place to increase taxes if we were going to have revenue enhancement.
Amcare received the trouble unknown call a little after 9 o'clock this morning. When they arrived at 1517 Northeast 18th Street, they found 44-year-old Mary Vanterpool dead and her 22-year-old daughter Eudora in critical condition, shot 3 times in the back. Before she was taken to the hospital, the daughter told police her father had shot her mother several times, and then he turned the gun on her.
She was forced to kneel down and told to pray and was shot execution style in the back 3 times. Now we have another call that our officers are checking out at this moment, and we believe it may be our suspect. The suspect is said to be suicidal, and we're checking out now a report of a person who has shot himself in that park in a vehicle.
The suicide victim was the father, 45-year-old Orale Vanterpool. Police believe he took his own life with the same rifle he'd used on his wife and his daughter. Vanterpool was scheduled for arraignment this morning on child molestation charges. Police believe an argument over the charge may have led to the shooting spree. A bondsman who helped police identify the dead man said he had worked at the VA hospital for 14 years, and this child molestation charge was the first trouble Vanterpool had ever been in. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4, in Northeast Oklahoma City.
In his order, Judge C. states conditions at Oklahoma prisons don't include cruel and unusual punishment. And although the judge agrees there remains problems within the system, he says, quote, "We are considering a large confined population of convicted felons, not a nursery school," end of quote. Supporters of federal control believe C's actions were taken too quickly. He took over the case from federal Judge Luther Bohannon 3 weeks ago. The man who originally filed the suit, former inmate Bobby Battles, questioned C's motive.
In my own mind, there are some questions as to whether or not Judge C has based his opinion on the law or based his opinion on the friendship of the AG, Mr. Mike Turpen.
I think the court has kind of accepted our challenge. We've told them all along we could do it and we could do it right without the necessity of a federal judge or federal court supervising us. And I think now we're going to get a chance to make good on our promises.
The American Civil Liberties Union plans to appeal the case.
I expect for us to be in the court on this issue for some time to come. We, of course, are going to appeal to the 10th Circuit and on up to the Supreme Court if that's what's necessary.
Corrections officials say they can handle the system now and hope for continued progress. Kevin Ogle, Action 4.
Pleasant Grove is one of 5 dependent schools in Pottawatomie County. There are 121 schools like this one in the entire state. These are the schools that sprang up before Oklahoma became a state. They are the basis of rural education. Classes run only through the 8th grade. Oftentimes, there are fewer than 50 students in the entire school. Pleasant Grove has about 100.
Well, I don't know what the vowels are, though. What's the vowels? A and E. Right. So what are we going to do to it?
Now there's talk of consolidating these schools to help save money for the state. That talk prompted this meeting between dependent school principals from around Oklahoma.
I think they would like for all classrooms.
They're here to unite themselves against consolidation and organize a strong lobby for small community schools.
I was raised in a dependent school. My father was a principal, and it's all he's ever been, principal of dependent schools, and that's all I've known. And I just hate to see them go out. Children miss something. I've taught in larger schools. I taught in Tulsa, but I'll still stick by the dependent schools.
Nobody has the answer to this problem. The communities will now fight for their schools as the legislature fights through its budget. Terry Cook, Action 4 in Shawnee.
And the only special election under consideration at the current time is a liquor by the drink election. So it seems to indicate from the data that we've collected that clearly what's anticipated is a special election this year, perhaps by late spring, on liquor by the drink.
Far be it from me in this office, speaking for the Attorney General's office, the resources to put the case on and do what needs to be done. If there are other factors, other variables involved that make one case not quite as strong, I just don't think you can persuade those people over there unless they believe in what you're saying, unless they trust what you're saying. I think they trusted Rhonda Singer, I think they trusted Bill Bullard and our attorneys, and I think they trusted our evidence, and I think they trusted our witnesses. I think our credibility had a very large impact on the Corporation Commission this past year.
Paula Brown is enjoying the simple luxury of running water. The Browns were without water for 2 weeks when the main servicing their home in Warr Acres froze. After days of calling for help without any results, the Browns were ready to give up. But finally, on Thursday, crews unthawed their line. But the situation involves more than just simple maintenance problems. Warr Acres is serviced by Oklahoma City water lines, and residents must pay twice the city rate. A lawsuit was filed 7 years ago against the city over the higher costs, and the issue is still unresolved. While the matter is pending, no improvements can be made on the Warr Acres system.
What we're trying to do as far as the rates go is protect the interests of our citizens who pay to support other city services, which in effect support the water system through other taxes other than the water rates. There are a number of needed capital improvements, larger and new water lines that would definitely improve their service out there. But the fact that we are being sued by the city of Warr Acres, that has put a stop on the city of Oklahoma City doing anything of any major import inside the city of Warr Acres.
The main servicing the Browns' home is one of those areas needing improvement. The system was laid decades ago and only offers a 2-inch capacity, opposed to the present-day 6-inch standard. In addition, it's only a half a foot below the surface, making it vulnerable to conditions. Until the lawsuit is resolved between Warr Acres and Oklahoma City, the Browns will have to live with out-of-date water services. In the meantime, they hope maintenance on the lines will improve.
I just think it's sad that we get put in the middle because of it. I think it's awful for legal reasons that they won't come out and service their line regardless of a lawsuit or not, because we're the ones that suffer.
Kevin Ogle, Action 4.
Health officials believe the problem began when a cook at this Tishomingo restaurant caught infectious hepatitis. The man continued to serve food for 10 days before his disease was discovered. The Johnston County Health Department figures it has immunized 2/3 of the 1,200 people who ate at the restaurant. The immune globulin serum can prevent infectious hepatitis if it is given within 2 weeks of exposure. Health officials hope they have reacted quickly enough to prevent a serious hepatitis outbreak like they recently had in nearby Marietta.
In that situation, we did have employees who were working at multiple restaurants. First thing we did was interview every employee of the Western Inn, and we found no employee working at another restaurant. This immediately made us feel very comfortable that we were only dealing with one potential source, one potential case.
The globulin injections can be painful, but they're preferable to having an illness which can linger for months.
I didn't find out about it till this morning. My daughter told me she heard it on the news. So I thought I'd better get up here and get me one. I'm glad that I did.
The health department's drive to warn the public about the hepatitis danger seems to be working. Health officials have received phone calls about the outbreak from as far away as Montana. Scott Wallace, Action 4 in Tishomingo.
B-R-A-C-K-E.
Well, this is kind of a red one.
We think we'll be able to narrow it down to probably one food item, but at this point the analysis is still preliminary, and we're awaiting both some further questionnaire data and laboratory analysis results.
The Pottawatomie County Sheriff's Department in Shawnee is running out of money fast, even though crime in the county continues to climb, and the jail is at or over full capacity most of the time. The department has lost 30% of its manpower because of funding problems, and the situation is growing worse. Criminal investigation has increased by 100%, forcing the department to depend more and more on volunteer help. Sheriff Paul Abel says additional funding must be made available.
If we don't arrest someone, that affects somebody. If we do arrest someone, that affects somebody. And, you know, about 30% of our calls are life and death calls. And these type things have to take priority over other things in the county that, you know, where life and death is not involved. And
Abel plans to file for emergency relief appropriations, and according to the sheriff, if those funds are not made available, the Pottawatomie County Sheriff's Department could be out of business by the end of March. Abel is recruiting the state auditor to help locate funds he believes his office is due. In the meantime, he will make his request for emergency aid and hope for the best. Kevin Ogle, Action 4 in Shawnee.
(1983) has been one of the worst years for black people in Oklahoma as far as employment is concerned, and that really hasn't changed that much from 1982. But this time it just seems that so many people lost jobs that they had, and unemployment is up and jobs are tight.